Here in front of the British Consulate. We're here to say happy birthday, Julian Assange. On your day, dear Jew, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Julian. Happy birthday to you. So the celebration of his birthday is now taking place all over the world to commemorate his struggle, really, for justice, truth, because Julian put his life on the line to get the truth out through Wiki Leaks about the crimes of the United States and Britain, the crimes of imperialism, the crimes of murder in Iraq. And when we talk about the real criminals, we have to look at this U.S. government. And Biden just bombed Syria and Iraq, another war crime, bombing people in other countries. It seems that this government has no barriers when it comes to bombing other people around the world. There are no barriers, and they're using our money. They're using our money to bomb people all over the world. And even Bernie Sanders, made sure that $875 million went to Israel to rearm them against the Palestinians. Now, this is a country that's the most armed country in the Middle East, Israel, and they have nuclear weapons, and this country is helping to use those weapons against the Palestinians like in a ghetto where they're bombing them and terrorizing them. And we have a situation today in the United States where we had a building collapse in Florida, as a result of deregulation, as a result of the fact that they don't enforce the laws, and they allow the Building Owners Association to decide when to do these repairs. That building collapsed. It's a crime. Really, it's a crime against the people in that building. And as a matter of fact, the Democrats in Florida haven't said that. DeSantis, who's the governor, hasn't been held accountable for the fact he's in favor of deregulation. He's in favor of letting the capitals decide when they should rebuild a building. Another crime. Well, another crime. And guess what? What happened? The Israelis sent a team to this site to find out if there are any survivors. It was a PR stunt of the Israelis. But right next door to Israel in Gaza, a building collapsed of Al Jazeera and AP and killed people. Did they send a crew to see if there were any survivors? Hell no.
They bombed it.
That's like the Polish ghetto, what they're doing in Gaza. They prevent evacuation equipment. They prevent food. They prevent supplies. So we're talking about what Julian did was to expose these people. Not just in the United States and Iraq, but all over the world. WikiLeaks has been a beacon of getting the truth out, including with Hillary Clinton and what she did as far as military dictatorships. Hillary Clinton was involved as Secretary of State in supporting military coups in Guatemala, and her hands are bloody. And what we're saying here is, let the truth seekers out. Stop the attack on journalists. Free Julian Assange now. 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 And the reason, again, that Julian Assange is not in jail, is in jail and continues to be in jail, is because he went up against the CIA. He went up against the U.S. Intelligence apparatus. And they framed him up. They had a false rape charge in Sweden, fabricated. And also the news has been released that, in fact, the person that they have evidence against, Julian, lied, admitted he lied. It was a complete frame-up. He should be immediately freed. But, of course, the judicial system in the UK, like the judicial system in the United States, is rigged. The real criminals are not prosecuted. Trump is a criminal. He tried to do an insurrection in this country. He called on people to attack the Capitol to stop the certification of the election. That is a crime. Where is Trump? He's not being prosecuted. He's not in jail. And the Democrats are not even demanding that he be put in jail, when they themselves came under attack in the Capitol directly by Trump and his goons, his fascist right-wing goons. So again, they're defending the criminals. They're covering up the crimes, and Julian Assange will be free. We're going to fight for him to be free, because what he did was a contribution to our freedom, to the freedom of people throughout the world. What he did was a contribution to human beings in Iraq, in Syria, all throughout the world, and that's why they want to keep him in jail. They don't want him freed. So we're here today again at the British Consulate, and we're demanding that he immediately be released, that he has to be freed, and that it's a crime to keep him in jail. The government of Britain is illegally jailing Julian Assange. They know all this evidence is fabricated. They know that lies have been made to keep him in jail. They want to keep him in jail despite that. And we're saying no. Free Julian Assange now.
Raise your hand if you know who Daniel Hale is. Okay, he is as important as Julian Assange. He was allegedly the leaker who leaked the important secret military documents about the U.S. drone wars back several years back. He was in the film National Bird, if you saw that. A very important film if you haven't seen it, National Bird. It's the best documentary about the U.S. drone wars. He is in prison right now, just like Julian Assange. He has a sentencing hearing on July 22nd, and he could be given 10 years jail sentence for just revealing, acting on his conscience, being so troubled because he was involved in the targeted killing program by U.S. drones. And he was so troubled by what he was involved in and the possibility of civilians being killed that he leaked these really important documents. We need to protect our whistleblowers and our journalists and publishers who help bring truth to not only the American public, but the global world. So I hope that you guys will meet us on the bridge at noon a week from tomorrow, Sunday. And pardon? July 11th. At noon. We'll be there for about an hour and a half. Those of us who feel comfortable will walk on the bridge. Otherwise, we can spread ourselves out on the plaza if you don't feel comfortable being on the bridge right now because of the pandemic. And then from there, we'll get in our cars or whatever transportation we use, and we'll go to the consulate. The British consulate aimed to be there by 3 o'clock. So if you needed take a refresher break in between. And we don't know the address of the British consulate. If someone has the smartphone and they can research it. No, not the home. We have to do some research. We need to find the home of the British consulate, right? And Consul General. So if you don't know about Daniel Hale, please watch that film, National Bird. And please join us on the bridge. And my heart is really deeply in pain knowing that Julian Assange is still in prison, being abused. He's one of the most important figures of the 21st century, and he should be protected. And I'm ashamed of my government. I have been ashamed of my government for a long time. So thank you guys all for being here. I'm sure Steve has other people to invite up here.
Thank you. We are at KPFA. I used to be on KPFA Work Week. I was kicked off. Our show Work Week was kicked off of KPFA because they said they wanted to go in new directions. And we had a fight at KPFA to pass a resolution to support Julian Assange and call for his freedom. And that board, the present board majority, in fact, Carol Wolfley said, we can't take a position calling for the freedom of Julian Assange. The reason is we just have to talk about him, but we can't be an advocate for his freedom. Well, I have to say, if you can't be an advocate, you're a media station for Julian Assange, who are you? Who are you? The other journalists at Pacifica and KPFA have been attacked by the police, have been threatened. You have to stand up for free speech. And we made a fight also in the journalist union. I'm a member of the Pacific Media Workers Guild in San Francisco. And we had to have a long fight to get the union to support Julian Assange. And they eventually did because Tulsi Gabbard put in a congressional resolution calling for the freedom of Julian Assange, along with another congressperson. But you know, where were the other Congress people? Barbara Lee, all the left, quote-unquote, left Congress people, completely silent. Here was a resolution calling for the freedom of Julian Assange, and the Democratic lefts in the Congress refused to make a statement and support this congressional resolution. So that tells you really where the Democrats are. It is a crime that Julian Assange is in jail today. It is a crime against Julian Assange. It's a crime against the people of the United States who have a right to hear what this government is doing. We need to know what this government is doing, and that's what Julian Assange was doing. He was allowing people to be heard about what is really going on. And the war crimes continue. You have to ask, as one congressperson said that Biden should be prosecuted for illegally bombing Syria and Iraq. That's a war crime. Not one congressperson has said, why are you committing war crimes by bombing this country? We are not in control of Iraq. They have a sovereign government. We are not in control of Syria. They have a sovereign government. Why did he order these bombings? Because Biden is a tool of the imperialist. He's a tool of the war munitions companies that make money off of bombing people, off of destroying lives. It's a business. That's what this system is. It's a business of profiteering and militarization and war. So the next speaker has been a longtime activist on our picket lines for Assange. Charles Minster is a retired member of the Laborers Union. Welcome, Charles.
Julian's actions helps to show you that the emperor has no clothes, but this emperor is armed to the teeth, and that's what he's using against the world, to either destroy them or threaten them. Or if he doesn't use that, he uses sanctions like in Venezuela, where they won't even let the COVID vaccines into the country. And the Cubans have had to intercede there to send vaccines to help save people's lives. This is the United States government that we are under control of. We're under control of vicious, murderous thieves, protecting imperialism and capitalism in its death agony. And it's our job to defend Julian and all the class war prisoners. And we have to get the labor movement to get off their ass. Now, to get them off their ass, you have to get rid of that bureaucracy, which has got their nose up the Democratic Party's ass. The Democratic Party is not our friend. And to depend on them, to beg them to do something is not reality. That's like expecting the banker to not foreclose on your house because you're a nice guy and you work hard. Insensible. So until we and the trade union bureaucracy break from the Democrats and build a party that's going to fight for a workers' government, we're screwed. Free Julian Assange, Mumia Abdul-Jabbar, Leonard Peltier.
Free Julian Assange. And our next person is Francis, who has been a longtime activist, fighter, and using music for solidarity and the struggle. Welcome, Francis.
Bring them home, bring them home. Bring all troops around the land. Bring them home, bring them home. It'll make the general sad, I know. Bring them home, bring them home. They want to tangle with the foe. Bring them home, bring them home. Now the world needs teachers, books, and schools. Bring them home, bring them home. And a few golden rules. Bring them home, bring them home. If you love this land of the free, bring them home, bring them home. Bring all troops back from overseas. Bring them home, bring them home. Now we don't want to fight for oil. Bring them home, bring them home. On some foreign soil. Bring them home, bring them home. So if you love your Uncle Sam, bring them home, bring them home. Bring all troops back from overlands. Bring them home, bring them home.
The grounds that the government of the United States wants to indict and imprison Julian Assange for 175 years is that he jeopardized the national security interests of the United States government. That meant that he told the truth about a genocidal war in Iraq, where the United States, in this so-called war to stop weapons of mass destruction, when the United States has 99% of them, destroyed Iraq and murdered through sanctions and bombings 1.5 million people. The pretext for Vietnam was that a Vietnamese sampan attacked an American destroyer. That 10-year horror killed 4 million Vietnamese who had the nerve, like all oppressed people, to fight for their own sovereignty. The United States orchestrated the NATO Gulf state monarchy war against Syria that took the lives of 500,000 people. Once again, the national security war, which was defined of taking over that country's oil. Julian Assange is a courageous hero of our movement, who is a victim of the capitalist, racist, apartheid U.S. government state. When 20 million people demonstrated last summer for Black Lives Matter, they coined the term that this society suffers from systemic racism. The cops of today are the slave patrols of yesterday. They break our unions and they maintain the prison industrial complex, which incarcerates more people and a higher percentage of its population than any nation on earth. Julian Assange is a symbol of the fight back, along with Chelsea Manning and Edward Snowden. And now you have the horror just released last Saturday when a key government witness against Assange admitted that he was sent by the FBI to spy on Julian Assange and tell innumerable lies, falsehoods, which still exist in the indictment that the United States has reintroduced to keep Julian Assange in prison and to send him home for 175 years. Send him in prison for 175 years. Our rally last Saturday was one of 17 rallies across the United States where we toured the Assange family, John and Gilbert. The Oakland rally had 200 people, and we raised $9,000 at the rally to free Julian Assange and support his defense. That rally was sponsored by 30 different organizations. How many of you belong to one of those organizations? Fantastic. It was an example of everybody working together, United Front style, for free speech, for a free press, for free journalism, and for the right to tell the truth about the U.S. bloody imperialist wars. Stay involved. Let's all work together. Thank you for calling this great rally. Glad to be with you. Free Julian Assange.
And that's what we're talking about, because the the jailing of Julian Assange is to cover up the fact that these governments are themselves war criminals. That's what they're jailing Julian Assange are. And they're trying to say to, like Chelsea Manning, keep quiet, cover up these crimes. Edward Snowden, cover up the crimes, don't release this information. But you know, more and more people are saying they have a right to the information. And the American people have a right to this information. They have a right to know what our tax dollars are paying for. They have a right to know all the countries we've overthrown. And you know, right now there's a big debate in the United States about civil war and the insurrection. Well, they've never said in Congress how many insurrections we've organized around the world, how many overthrows of governments this country has organized in Iran, in many, many countries, Brazil, Guatemala. Can you name the different countries? Chile, where they've, on 9/11 in Chile, they killed thousands of people, including Allende. This government, this criminal government, has a history of using our money to overthrow regimes. Now, why are they doing that? Why is this government involved in war crimes? Because the imperialists, the multinationals that run this country, believe everything belongs to the United States. Cheney, that the oil in Iraq belonged to the United States. That was our oil. And they had plans to divide up the oil fields in Iraq by U.S. companies to take over the oil in Iraq. The people, and that was organized, that war in Iraq was organized by George Shultz, who was from San Francisco, who was Secretary of State. He set up a committee to liberate Iraq. This is George Shultz here in San Francisco. Well, I mean, George Shultz wants to liberate Iraq so he can steal the wealth of Iraq. That's what George Shultz's idea is. Their idea of liberation is taking the wealth of the world and putting it in their hands. That's their idea of liberation. And that's something that, that Julian Assange stood up against by releasing the information in Wiki Leaks and putting his life in danger, because they want to kill Julian Assange. The treatment that they've had against Julian Assange is to destroy him as a human being, to drug him, to prevent him from actually standing up and telling the truth. But we're here today on his birthday to say, free Julian Assange now. Cynthia Papermaster, who has been active in the fight for Julian Assange. Welcome, Cynthia.
The worst of the worst criminals in England are sent. He's a hero. He deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. He does not deserve to be in prison 1 second longer.
You gotta hold the mic.
Sorry. And as Alana pointed out on the way over here, his father, John Shipton, called this a disgrace. This situation is a disgrace. I'll take this off. If you have a phone with you, I'm going to give you a number to call right now. If you could do this, it would be great. I want you to call Merrick Garland at the Department of Justice.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that for that to happen.
Are you okay? Lucky, sorry about that.
It's okay, baby.
Yeah, if you have your phone and you could make this phone call now or later, just leave your comment on the Department of Justice phone number, please. It's 202, I'll say it twice. 202 353 1555. Again, 202 353 1555. And I leave it up to you what to say, but I think the main message is to drop the prosecution now. Drop it. They have nothing on Julian Assange. 202 353 1555. And tell our Department of Justice and our Attorney General to drop the prosecution of Assange now, immediately. You can say whatever you want, but that's what I would say. I would get that point across. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming out today. Thank you, Steve, and everyone who organized this. Jeannie, there's cake coming, right? Okay. Okay, thank you again.
For us to speak about the blackout of the mainstream media, about the discovery that the little guy in Iceland, that little perv, that little child molester and embezzler lied about Julian Assange hacking into things, and that's the basis for that sudden new indictment that the United States wanted to enact last year during the hearing. Why is nobody talking about that? Universally, the mainstream media is acting like it never happened, and there are only a few outlets on the internet who are reporting it. Now that is a huge question. That is a huge creepy willy, really creepy thing, that the mainstream media is acting like that did not happen, like the guy didn't admit to lying, because that undermines their entire effing case against Julian. The same way that breaking into Daniel Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office after he released the Pentagon Papers was intended to smear him. The case was dropped when the evidence came about that they had broken into his psychiatrist's office. Same thing is happening here. The whole pretense was a lie, and this guy has confessed to it, and the mainstream media is silent. That is a huge and important thing that we should really be paying attention to, because it's just the criminal mainstream media, the propaganda outlets of all of the government and the warmongers. Thank you.
One of the things that we're facing today is the danger of a world war. And, you know, when a country like the United States is a declining imperial empire goes into crisis, what do? They blame immigrants, they blame Asians, they blame the Russians and the Chinese. Who sent the jobs to China? It wasn't you or I, it was the capitalists to make more profit off of the Chinese. The witch hunt against China and Russia has to be opposed. And the real criminals are running this government. That's who the real criminals are. Our enemies are not overseas. Our enemies are right here in the United States in the Capitol. They cover up the crimes, and that's why the recent criminal bombing of Syria and Iraq has not been challenged by the politicians. They haven't said that Biden should be prosecuted or even investigated for a war crime. On what basis did he bomb Syria and Iraq? What law did he bomb them? What gives him the right to bomb another country? Because the imperialists don't believe that they have to follow the law. They're not prosecuted. Biden is personally responsible for the war in Iraq. He voted for the war in Iraq. He voted for money, as did Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. The war in Iraq would not have happened without the complicity of the Democratic Party. That is the real crime. That is the real crime. And when you talk about interfering with the American election, why do they never bring up Israel, which interfered in the American election, which went to Congress? Netanyahu went to Congress and attacked the President Obama and said that we should attack the Iranians, and said we should have sanctions on the Iranians. I would say that's interference. The Israelis right now are organizing against people in labor who are fighting for resolutions to support the Palestinians. That's interference. If any country is involved in interfering in the American electoral process, it's the Israeli government and the Zionists. That's who's really been involved. They're all over here. They're in San Francisco. They organize to defend the actions. They go after Rabab Abdul-Hadi, who's a professor at San Francisco State. They're trying to shut down her program. That is the Israeli influence. They're trying to fire professors who are critical of Israel. When you talk about influence in the United States, let's go to the real influencers, and that is Israel. That is Israel, and it's supported by the Democrats and Republicans. They never call out. They never call an investigation. Why is the Israeli government organizing against the American people who are critical of Israel? I say that's a crime. The American people have a right to stop U.S. aid to Israel, military aid, because what is Israel doing? They're bombing the people of Gaza. They're evicting people from their homes. That's what the U.S. government is doing, supporting. They're supporting an Israeli government who's engaged in war crimes. It's genocide against the Palestinian people. But this is nothing new. In Africa, all over the world, the United States is involved in genocide and supporting genocide and training troops at the Americas, School of the Americas, where they train troops to murder and torture people around the world. This is a crime. Is anyone calling for the shutdown of the School of Americas? They're here today. Thank you, brothers and sisters. But in Congress, there's nobody holding them accountable and saying they should be shut down. We have a torture training center right here in the United States to torture people around the world, to kill journalists, to suppress people who want control. And what are we talking about? We're talking about a world where the people have control. The working people, the poor people, the farmers, they should be the ones running this world, not the billionaires. And what has happened is Bezos and the billionaires have gotten wealthy in this pandemic. They've killed people in their factories and warehouses because they don't want to spend a penny on PPE and masks. That's a crime. When workers die because the capitalists don't want to spend money for proper protection. That's really a crime.
Worked a lot on Chelsea Manning's campaign before Chelsea was known publicly as Chelsea. And what they were trying to do, and what they're doing with Julian Assange, is torture. Make no doubt about that. When you wake up people, when you force them to, in a place that's either a jail, literally, or imprison them in an embassy, as he couldn't go out from, I believe it was the Ecuadorian embassy. That's torture, okay? What I'd like to ask the groups that are here is to put the information on your websites about Merrick Garland and his phone number, about the events on the 11th. That way we can print them from our homes, from the comfort of our own homes, and put them up locally. Let's get more people out here.
May all the year, throughout the coming year, and all the best to you. So
the prosecution and extradition of Julian Assange, the prosecution and extradition of Julian Assange is a travesty of justice. I know something about this. I am a former justice attorney. I worked in Washington, D.C. My specialty was extradition. I am very familiar with the extradition law of the United Kingdom and the United States. And I can tell you right now, just because it's not well understood, there are two major exceptions to extradition. One is it is a political offense. Then the extradition must be denied. Or if it's a politically motivated offense, then extradition must be denied. Well, both the United States attorneys in the Northern District of Virginia who filed the claims, and then the attorneys who submitted to the British government should be ashamed of themselves, because they know that this extradition request has no basis. The judge, the magistrate in the United Kingdom who heard this matter, and I was there at Belmarsh, outside the prison when she was having hearings there, and she went out of her way in her decision. First of all, she decided not to extradite, but of course on the grounds that sending him here would mean certain death to go into our prison system, which of course is true. But she went out of her way to make sure that she said, no, the political offense exception does not apply, nor is this a politically motivated offense. Well, that's a good question. That is a very good question. It's extremely disappointing that a British jurist would come to that conclusion, but they did. Ultimately, it is not the responsibility of Britain, of course. They've been asked to extradite, and they've gone through a process, sadly, with a magistrate who clearly is working for, let's put it this way, the intelligence services and the international war machine. So it's very sad, but ultimately responsibility is with the United States Department of Justice and the current administration in Washington, who is continuing charges which are unconstitutional and maintaining an extradition request, which is clearly groundless. But they've achieved their objective. How? By keeping him locked up and sending a message to every single journalist in the world that if you cross us, we will make sure you pay. We will make your life hell. And eventually we'll kill you, because we'll never actually have to go to trial. Justice denied, justice delayed is justice denied. Go to the Justice Department, demand that these charges be dropped. And the same with the Biden administration, who is in charge of the Justice Department. Thank you.
Store, sell, and fire. All the guns and bombs to defend your holy empire. And prove to me, America, that you care. Prove to me, America, you're aware. Who's dying for your freedom in this land? Who pays the cost for the liberties you demand? Is it for freedom or comfort and convenience? Is it a profit for big business? We pledge our allegiance. Are we prisoners in the land of the brave and bold? Held by indifference and hearts grown hard and cold. And prove to me, America, that you care. America, you're aware. Who's dying for your comfort in this land? Who pays the cost for the liberties you demand? Children of the world, you have the right to sing and dance, run and play, let your dreams take flight. As the innocent die, you rulers carry the shame. And if we sit idly by, we are in the blame. And oh, America, do you care? Oh, America, are we aware? Who's dying for your comfort in this land? Who pays the cost for the convenience we demand? Children of the world, you have the right to sing and dance, run and play, let your dreams take flight.